This is from China, or this is Chinese music. It may not be recorded in China, but it's Chinese traditional music. Would be from approximately the same, broadly the same era as the musical era in Western Europe when the piano was invented. So just, okay, let's, and one thing that can affect our perceptions, you see I'm wiggling with the volume control, because if something's louder or softer, that can affect our perception of the tone as well. So I'm trying to keep these more or less at the same volume. Okay, let's go ahead. This is a Purple Bamboo melody by Zhe Dao.
Is it dance music?
I don't know. Oh, is that for a truthful answer?
You can dance to anything.
Okay, moving on. You know, we caught a little bit of that.
What's that called?
Barhu and Coda.
That's John Hoshui, Rivers and Streams is the translation. Here's the next one. We're just getting short snippets here. This is called Horse Races. And this is Yang Xiao, Beautiful Evening. And one more.
What was that called?
Beautiful evening.
That was called Beautiful Evening, was it? Okay,
What was that?
that was
Some of the American Indian flute players kind of play like that.
Spring Comes to the Xiang River. Okay. how would you characterize the music that you just heard? How would you describe its qualities in compared to Western music?
I felt like the melody evokes more of sounds of nature and birds, whereas Western music at the time was much more evoking mechanical view.
Okay, so it was evocative of nature is one, okay.
Not a lot of fundamental, underlying,
Not a lot of
not a driving bass on this.
Not a lot of bass.
A lot of it's nasal sounding.
Nasal sounding.
Flexible rhythm,
Very
flexible rhythm.
Flexible rhythm,
Not a
okay.
steady beat.
Yeah, you would notice that.
Pentatonic.
Yeah, okay.
There was a lot more breath in the quality.
Breath, okay.
Like sound.
What, in our experience, the experience of many of us, where have we heard a little bit of that quality of tone?
It reminded me of Irish music.
Okay.
Okay.
You know where we hear that?
No.
That's what the first Oriental pianos coming over to the U.S. sounded like. Am I right? That was in their ear. I mean, that's the Oriental ear. That's what they're hearing and what they call good music. And it is good Oriental music. But I had the privilege of meeting with Jack Lau, who has a factory in Ningbo. It's the largest piano parts factory in the world. And he just made this comment in passing, and I just latched on it because of what I was doing with this. His comment was, and here's a Chinese person, saying, we need to remember that the piano is a Western instrument. Very perceptive on his part, I thought, and I think that's what I'm going to advocate is the case. That when we voice a piano, we don't want it to sound like that, or to work with that sound in particular. And again, I'm not anti this music, I'm just saying, do we not recognize that the piano has a different heritage, that where it's most comfortable in a different kind of tonal spectrum? And it was mentioned here, that's my observation. You get a lot of higher harmonics, not as much fundamental. Fundamental to the extent that you get, decays very fast. Nasal, which when we talk through our nose, that we're obscuring the fundamental of our voice. So that's what it is. So that's an example of what we don't, that the piano, when the piano comes to us, it comes from a different musical family or pedigree.
Keith, but also, if you go back to the history of the piano, where did it come from? It came from the harpsichord, which was, very little fundamental.
That's true.
And the early pianos, the Porgy pianos,
Mm-hmm.
to our ear now, they sound very tinny.
But they didn't like the harpsichord. That's why the piano got invented.
Well, they didn't like the harpsichord because there were no stroke responsive dynamics in the harpsichord.
That's what we always say. That's one of the features that we always say, but the harpsichord, in fact, does not really fit into the string family, the traditional string family, violin, viola, cello, bass. Yes, there's music with harpsichords in it, and I like harpsichords, again. But I'm just responding back to your observation a little bit, saying, yeah, that's true, but I don't think it's entirely true. I think that my observation is that the piano was trying to become something from its inception, and it was trying to become
More.
Right. It was trying, and it was trying to fit in, if you will, with the other instruments that were at a higher level of maturity, let's say, than the piano was. And again, if you've heard string instruments that are set up, the way they set up their stringed instruments with lower bridges, you don't have the same kind of sound that you get from orchestral music today. But still, even recognizing that as being true, it was something that I think the piano was trying, and I realize there are problems with personifying an inanimate instrument, but I think it's better than saying ontology. So there was a push, there was a direction to the development of the piano that to fit into its context. That's what I'm trying to suggest. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's my analysis of it. Let's just move up, just to illustrate.
The instrument had to do something. Holes were getting bigger, symphonies were getting bigger. Everything was getting bigger. Something had to change.
Okay, and again, I was talking with the guy that did our lecture at Norfolk last year. Marvelous lecture on forte piano, the development of them. And I asked him, okay, so why did pianos become what they became? And his answer was the traditional, I've heard it before, sort of the whole proletarian revolution, that music was coming out of, palace type places and into these big concert halls where the masses were, or at least the masses who could afford tickets, were coming. And so the piano needed to become louder. Well, that's the wrong answer to the right question, because yes, the piano did become louder, but it's not a louder harpsichord. It's a louder something else. And so that character of the piano also changed, as well as the volume.
Well, you can look at it when, Pop invented the Feldon hammer. There was a great demand for that solution because they couldn't get the kind of vocal waveforms thoroughly through the instrument that they wanted, and so that was a big part. So the market, music. If you wanted to reproduce music in your home back then, there were no stereos, no nothing. The piano was relatively portable, and accompanies a whole orchestra in range, and so people could experience all this music that was being created. That if they didn't live in Paris or London or Milan or Berlin, you didn't get a chance to hear it.
Right.
Prague, or if you lived out,
And I would like to observe that yes, there was other music happening. The minstrel, the touring minstrels with the harps and the things that maybe sounded a little bit more like what we heard in the Chinese music. There was that in
hurdy-gurdies.
It was there. It existed, but that was not. Pianos were not brought around with those people. That was not the musical environment of the piano. Let's just give ourselves a listen here to catch the piano. Oh. That's a world, or at least a half a world away from the Chinese music we heard earlier. It's a completely different thing. And I think that is, if we have a picture in our heads of that music, that can help us think about what a piano could sound like. Yeah, I know, that was a Brandenburg Concerto, and Bach made a Brandenburg Concerto.